Hey, this is Joe at graybenchelec. Welcome back to the pedal teardown series where I take apart new and interesting pedals and show you what's going on inside. Today we have the Hermida Audio Mosferatu. Okay, Hermida Audio Mosferatu. So you may not be familiar with this pedal, but you are probably familiar with its close descendant, which is the Hermida Audio Zendrive. So this is the higher gain version of the Zendrive, which wasn't as popular, or at least is not as popular now. Although if you go to Hermida Audio's website from back in the early 2000s when this pedal came out, I think it was 2003 this came out, if you go to like the Wayback Machine and look at their website, you will see it says Hermida Audio, home of the Mosferatu. So this was definitely, at one point at least, considered the flagship pedal, and the Zendrive is a close descendant of this. So the story is around early 2000s, Alfonso Hermida starts making pedals. Wants to mimic the tone of a couple Robin Ford Beatles covers, ends up making this pedal, sends it to Ford, and does some modifications, ultimately backing off the gain from this model. This is like the higher gain version of the Zendrive. Backs off the gain, changes the value of the gain pot, changes up the clipping configuration a little bit, ends up with the Zendrive, and the rest is history on that. Zendrive obviously is a much more popular pedal these days, going into the several $100s now used on eBay. Hermida Audio is no longer. They were sort of sold to or incorporated into Love Pedal. From what I understand, Alfonso Hermida helped Love Pedal with the new version that they make of the Zendrive. As far as I know, Love Pedal does not make a new version of the Mosferatu. So whatever Mosferatus there are, that's probably all there's ever going to be. There are new Zendrives. So anyway, so like I said, this is the higher gain version of the Zendrive, but it uses, as far as I can tell, uses the same op amp. It's going to have a similar clipping configuration and just a change to the gain knob here. There were also earlier versions of the Mosferatu that only had 3 knobs. This one includes the voice control just like the Zendrive does, and we'll look at what that control does. It's just turning a resistor that's coming off the feedback loop for the first gain stage. It makes that resistor variable. Controls on here, we have volume, gain, tone, and voice. Mosferatu logo, obviously. Latching foot switch, 5mm red LED for indication. Kobicon style DC jack on the side. Side mounted 1/4-inch jacks. Enclosure size is the 1590B. Rubber feet on the bottom. It's sort of a satin finish, but it's got sort of a texture to it. Satin finish black powder coat, I think. And then the recognizable metal placard from Hermida Audio. Let's go ahead and crack open the pedal. All right, so here is the insides of the Hermida Audio Mosferatu. So as I said, very similar to the Zendrive, the more popular Hermida Audio pedal. In fact, I believe the PCB is the same version. It's actually the same PCB, just use them for both. I wanted to pull the innards out of the pedal here, but it appears that the PCB is actually glued in. I tried to get an X-Acto and just sort of free that up carefully, but the glue appears to go down a little bit further, so it's gonna have to stay in the enclosure. As you can see, the PCB has been gooped. Gooping, of course, means just obscuring the components with usually some sort of hardening or curing liquid. In this case, it feels just like hot glue, black hot glue. No need to pull this one apart though, because it's already been degooped. And we know sitting under here for both the Zendrive and the Mosferatu is an arrangement of MOSFET, transistors, and clipping diodes. So that's what's hiding under there. The IC has also been sanded down, as you can see. The part number has been obscured. The general consensus, as far as I'm aware, is a AD712, which is a dual op amp, but there's no way to know for sure because it's been sanded down. Pretty standard plastic input jacks, Neutrik or Amphenol style, blue 3-pole double throw foot switch, Kobicon, DC jack, battery snap. One nice little attention to detail, Alfonso actually ground down the little flash or excess material left over from the casting process when the enclosure was made. And that's because there can be little shards or little slivers of metal that stick up there, and it could actually do damage to the battery. I don't know how necessary that is. Aluminum is a very soft metal, but I guess you could rip up the plastic casing on a battery, so I guess that's a nice thing to do. Potentiometers, alpha pots, as you can see. Carbon film resistors, Zycon electrolytics. We also have some writing inside the pedal here. This appears to be a serial code, maybe a day code like 0207, February 2007. And down at the bottom is Mr. Hermida's signature. So that's the inside of the pedal. Let's have a look at the schematics for the Zendrive and the Mosferatu and see where they're similar and where they differ. All right, first up is the schematic for the Zendrive, which is the more popular pedal. This is the schematic from Ion Effects. They have a project called the Azimuth Dynamic Overdrive, which is a clone of the Zendrive. Thank you, Ion Effects, for the schematic, and go check out their website and check out the Azimuth if you want to build a Zendrive. So starting over here, we have a pretty standard soft clipping setup inside the feedback loop of an op amp. Super common configuration, probably most famous in the Ibanez Tube Screamer. The clipping is a bit more exotic though. We have two N7000 MOSFET transistors used for clipping, and we also have an arrangement of diodes which are asymmetric or will cause asymmetric or offset clipping. We have a BAT41 and a 1N34A. BAT41 is a silicon diode that behaves a lot like a germanium, and 1N34A is a germanium diode. And then on the opposite side or opposite polarity, we have that BAT41. Gain knob here is a 500K linear, and we also have a filter control or a filter coming off the side of the feedback loop here with that voice control on the schematic. Pretty standard inline tone control, similar to a RAT. Buffer, op amp buffer on the output, then volume control. So this is the Zendrive. Some would call it a Tube Screamer derivative, which I think is somewhat fair to say. The tone control is different, clipping setup is different, but otherwise it's a single op amp overdrive or distortion. Let's look at the Zendrive, or excuse me, the Mosferatu here. Schematic is from Kusi or Kusi at FSB, Freestyle Boxes. So thank you to Kusi, or KUSI, however you say that. Sorry if I butchered it. This is the schematic from a trace they did in 2007 for Mosferatu, so potentially the same year as this pedal. And you will see there's a lot of similarities. Again, single op amp, two-stage sort of deal. We still have MOSFET clipping here, except in here we have symmetrical MOSFET soft clipping, where we have just a single diode going each way, and both diodes are 1N34 germaniums. I was actually wrong earlier. I thought I had read or seen that the gain knob was a higher value in the Mosferatu, but apparently not. It's the same 500K linear potentiometer there. And the filter coming off the feedback loop does not show the voice control because this schematic is for a 2007 early 3-knob version. Oh, you know what? Actually, I might be mistaken. I think the trace was from 2007, but the pedal was from earlier. So this was a 3-knob version of the pedal down here. It's specified. So this does not have the voice control, but it's reasonable to assume that the voice control is probably the same as the Zendrive. So there'd be a 10K variable resistor. Everything else is pretty similar. The tone control is a little bit different. This has the treble control coming here off the feedback loop of the op amp. I believe this is the same way that the Klon does it for their treble control, but I will correct myself if not. And then out of the op amp into a volume control. These two pedals are actually very standard. Main difference being the clipping configurations for the two pedals. One has symmetrical clipping with two germanium diodes. The Zendrive here has asymmetrical clipping. All right, so that is the insides of the Hermida Audio Mosferatu. Let's go ahead and put the pedal back together. All right, that is it for the teardown on the Hermida Audio Mosferatu. If you have any questions or recommendations for a pedal you want to see in a future teardown episode, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate you hitting the like button and subscribing, and hit the notification bell if you want to know when I make a new video. I am Joe from Graybenchelec. Thank you for watching.